to another exciting adventure. My name is Mr. Dustin, and today I will be reading John Ronald's Dragons, the story of J.R.R. Tolkien. And if you guys know who J.R.R. Tolkien is, he wrote The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, which you'll find captured in this picture. Right here you have the mighty Gandalf. This story is written by Caroline McAlister, illustrated by Eliza Wheeler. John Ronald was a boy who loved horses and trees and strange-sounding words. But most of all, John Ronald loved dragons. Dragons that flew through the clouds, dragons that breathed sizzling flames, dragons that tied themselves in knots, dragons that wore shiny scales, and dragons that guarded ancient treasure. John Ronald fed sugar cubes to the milkman's horse. He swung from the branches of beech trees with his little brother. His mother read him stories about brave knights who battled dragons. But in safe Sarehole, a small town in Britain's Midlands, no actual dragons flew through the clouds. Only geese and sometimes a hawk. At school, John Ronald made good friends. The boys held secret parties in the library with tea and biscuits. The librarian scolded them for dropping crumbs on her books. They acted in plays and they played rugby. They sketched pictures and made jokes. But at school, there were no dragons that breathed sizzling flames. Only the headmaster who smoked a pipe. On vacations from school, John Ronald visited his cousin Mary. They made up their own language. Darfis ma fagum copa hakfisco skila fa minowak. Prosico fa stirako. Dukatyam malnibato. Which meant there was an old man who said, "How can I possibly carry my cow? For if I was to ask it to get in my basket, it would make such a terrible row." The grown-ups shrugged their shoulders. At his cousin's house, there were no dragons tied up in knots. Only John Ronald and Mary who tied themselves in knots, laughing at their private language. Then, John Ronald's mother died. He and his brother moved in with their aunt. She didn't like boys, and her house was cold and lonely. At night, John Ronald dreamed of exploring a steamy dragon's den. But in the morning, when he walked into his aunt's kitchen, nothing warmed the room. Only a thin wisp of steam rose from his lumpy oatmeal. On the way from his aunt's house to school, John Ronald stopped at the church. There he helped Father Francis perform the morning mass. He carried a cross up the aisle. He rang the altar bell. After some time, John Ronald moved to a boarding house. There, he met a girl with bright eyes and shiny black hair. He fell in love and asked her to marry him, and she agreed. For a while, he forgot to look for dragons with shiny scales. He had only eyes for Edith as she played scales on her piano. All of a sudden, the whole world went to war. John Ronald had to go too. He trudged through the mud. He slept in a trench. He heard loud guns. For as far as he could see in any direction, the war had destroyed all the green trees. He tried to shut out the noises of war by making up another imaginary language. It didn't work. It was then that he most needed dragons. But of course, there were no dragons on the battlefield, only ugly machines belching flames. When John Ronald came home, he got a job teaching at the University of Oxford. He gave lectures, he went to meetings, he tutored students, he graded many, many exams. When he could escape from his work, he ate fish and chips at the pub with his friends. Sometimes they read each other stories they had written, but there were still no dragons guarding treasure, only silent gargoyles guarding buildings. Then one day, when John Ronald was grading exams, he came to a blank page. He wrote on the page, "In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit." He didn't yet know what a hobbit was. It wasn't a dragon, but he followed it anyway. On school holidays in winter, when the fire was lit and the tea kettle was whistling, John Ronald told his children stories about the Hobbit, who, by the way, he named Bilbo Baggins. He gave Bilbo hairy feet. Bilbo lived in a cozy underground home in the Shire. But most important of all, Bilbo led John Ronald over the misty mountains, through the Mirkwood Forest, and across the long lake to the base of the Lonely Mountain. There at last, John Ronald found his dragon, and deep under the Lonely Mountain, there still lives a dragon that flies through the clouds and breathes sizzling flames, a dragon that wears shiny scales and guards ancient treasure, a dragon named Smaug. Tune in next time. See you all later.